Thank you so much for joining us again on another awesome episode of Bioenergetic Beats. I'm Heather Gray, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner. And this episode is brought to you today by Nikki, Unleash the Wellness Within. It's a non-invasive, easily affordable, and highly effective approach to optimize wellness. It's a wearable device that puts frequency better based life in your hands and on your wrist. And don't forget to stick around till the very, very end. Well, first off, you're not going to want to hear one thing that my awesome guest has to say, but we also have an incredible giveaway to give at the end of this show that you're going to want to find out more about. So stay tuned. And in the meanwhile, let's welcome Bridget Danner to the show. Yay! I love her.
Applause button.
She's a fellow FDN like myself. She's an acupuncturist, which I think is so cool. I've read her book. I'm a little bit of a fangirl. I'm a lot of fangirl. And she's just really talking about a topic that is just not covered enough and is a huge barrier to health. And with a lot of people, especially those of us with chronic health disease like Lyme. So we're going to dive deep into Bridget's backstory with mold and kind of what she does to mitigate it, some of the cool stuff that she's up to. We'll talk about her book. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here. I'm excited.
Yay. So yeah, why don't you take us back to the beginning? Tell us a little bit about, how you got started, why you got started, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so my first part of my career was as an acupuncturist, which I got into because I was an environmentalist, really. So I wanted to just be teaching people to live more naturally and that kind of a thing. I went to school and then I moved to Oregon to start my career. Where, I was just learning all the things about back pain and, things like acupuncturists do. Portland's a very environmentally friendly city. So I wasn't really thinking much, about environmental awareness, just kind of living it. And I started to be sicker and sicker living there, the climate, and ultimately I was living in a moldy house I didn't know about. I think I was there for 8 years. So I was learning a lot about functional medicine and my health and, nutrition and blood sugar on top of what I already knew, and just wasn't really getting better. So I eventually got, really bad. And luckily somebody mentioned to me, what has maybe changed in your house. And that's when the mold conversation started. So I always say, I kind of came full circle back into the environmental side of things, because it's very much an environmental illness that you really can't heal from staying in the environment, at least the way it is, that made you sick. So it's been really satisfying. It was a very hard thing to go through. But now I get to, teach people about it. You've supported me recently. I'm starting to teach practitioners about it. We just had a couple classes for our practitioner group, and man, they have no shortage of clientele. People need it. So they're just it's complex. So they're just trying to learn all the ins and outs of it.
It is very complex. And that's what I love, love, love about your book, is because you really boiled it down into such a beautiful, eloquent, simplistic way. And I also love your no nonsense approach to it, because I think a lot of practitioners have a hard time telling people hard information. And you're
Yeah.
look, if you want to get better, this is what it takes. And, talk to us a little bit about, your thoughts on if you're living in a moldy environment and being able to take things with you to the new environment.
Yeah.
See, I can see the look on your face. That's a yeah.
It's a big issue, and I'm always kind of thankful when I'm on some kind of a group call and, clients are saying, yeah, that I made that mistake too, because I don't want to be the only one saying it, because it sucks to not only have to move or move out or whatever, and then lose a lot of your belongings. So for people listening, if you're I'm not talking about a quick little water damage incident that you take care of, but if you're in a home that probably has a few different moisture issues, you've been living in it, living with indoor mold and its toxins for a long time, those are traveling through the air. Those become aerosoled. And the toxins are the toughest part because they're so incredibly small. So they can be latching on and embedding to all sorts of things. So think about something like a couch, which, is mostly all porous down to this deep inner area that no one's ever gone to, that is getting toxic way down in there. I actually just had a client recently who had a kind of a poor remediation. That happens a lot too. Moved to an apartment, brought the couch and a few other things, and realized while he was there, I'm still being, reacting to this couch. So now he's, left it. And I prefer people not to make that mistake. Sometimes we still do make it. I sort of made it in my own journey. But if you're sick enough and the belongings have been affected for a while, it's tough to get them clean. There are enzyme products and different products to use. Maybe if the scale of things is like you're not that sick or you didn't live there that long, maybe it can be recovered. But yeah, I've seen time and time again that you try to take it with you. The expression, you can't take it with you. That kind of pretty much is true for mold. So it's easier for me to say because I did lose all my stuff too. I was in that home a long time. We had a lot of issues. So yeah, I definitely don't have the personality to just kind of like give it to people straight. But in this arena, I have gotten to that point because I just like know it, to my core and like lived it. That yeah, I'm really honest with people. I still try to be, empathetic, but sometimes, especially because our brain is affected by mold, there's just a disconnect on like people will be really sick and they're like, well, I want to keep living here until my son graduates high school in 3 years. And I'm like, think about what you're saying, think about what you're saying here. And it can be tough. It's a tough conversation.
Absolutely. And if I remember correctly, didn't you say that you actually contaminated your car?
2 cars.
Two cars.
The first place we lived in. Yeah. Yeah, because we were moving stuff around like in the cars. And so we traded one in, and then we put one like in storage for a couple months. And as soon as we opened the car again, we were like, no. And I think people think, oh, well, how could you be going and trading in this super toxic car? But I always say like what you've become sensitive to is like very much like your own thing. Like, somebody else, they're going to clean that car and somebody else like never noticed. It's not like it was in a flood. It just was exposed to the toxins that we had become very sensitive to. So yeah, we lost basically everything. It wasn't easy. I would have nightmares sometimes about all the stuff like we were just giving away and like throwing away. And, it was like thousands and thousands of dollars. So we're starting this conversation on a pretty severe note. So probably a lot for people to take in. It is kind of the more extreme version, of mold illness, but I do see a lot of it, like if you're in that position. So if you're not in that position, you're just learning for your health, Heather and I can talk about more like prevention and, good practices. So you never get to the point where your home is, moldy and you're in this situation.
Yeah, it's funny, not funny, but there's a lot of us out there with funky detox pathways, and part of the reason why not everybody, why four people can live in a house and two people are really reactive to it, right? So it's not that you're giving away something that's toxic to everybody.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny. So the old house that I used to live in is still just a few miles down the road from me, and it's taking everything I have. Sometimes I still think about it, that I want to write some sort of a note saying, hey, if you and your family have mystery illness, it probably has to do with the mold that's in this house, leaving some sort of a note behind to kind of warn them. But then again, like you said, you never know if their genetics are the type that aren't going to react to what's there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was in that house for a long time before I got to that, full breakdown point. So it's not always like you move in and you can tell, unfortunately.
So you talk about full breakdown. So what were some of the other factors that kind of contributed to that?
To my health?
Correct.
I mean, I think at the time I was also, I was a new mom. I had a business with employees, like an in-person business. I don't think I had all like the support and self-care I needed. But honestly, like even if I had all that, I just don't think I could have thrived in that home. Like some people argue, and you're in the Lyme world, like, well, which came first, or like which is more potent or whatever. And I gotta say, I'm in the mold camp. Like it's really hard to do well. I mean, my house was 100 years old. Later, we found out there was leakage in the basement. The windows weren't installed properly. There was a leak in the attic. The basement was too humid. I mean, and if you looked at it, it just looked like a nice craftsman house, but it was a mess. Most of the mold we can't see because it's in the floorboards, it's in the walls. So you can go to a home and think, oh, this is a nice home. You don't smell anything, whatever. It doesn't mean there isn't a mold problem. So I think, I was trying to tackle all those things like stress and this. So that's why I often say now, like, if you're doing everything right, but you're not getting better, you're getting worse. There's something else there. So, in a sense, like, yeah, I think those things are going to factor in, but I don't think, in the end, I think mold will win out in almost all situations.
110%. Those are like the three questions I ask all my clients before I start working with them. Have their house been tested for mold? Have they been tested for mold? Have they ruled out mold? Have they ruled out cavitations? And have they ruled out sleep apnea? Because if they've got those three massive barriers to health, I could put them on the best Lyme protocol in the world, the best diet in the world, the best mindset in the world. But if they're still getting these massive toxins on the outside or not getting enough oxygen when they sleep at night, you're gonna keep pushing that boulder uphill.
Right.
Absolutely. So awesome. We're gonna actually take a really quick break, and then when we continue, we'll get on the lighter side and talk about prevention and
we'll try.
Mold is kind of it's a heavy topic, just like Lyme, right? Yeah. But there's lots of there's always hope, right? There's, especially with people out there like you talking and writing books and distilling this down to the easiest parts, like to where a person that is brain fogged can follow your directions, right? And get out of the mess. So stay tuned, everybody. Don't leave. And again, you're going to want to stay till the very end so you can not miss out on our giveaway. Be right back.
All-in-one wellness for Lyme sufferers. Nikki Plus Lyme is designed to overcome Lyme symptoms and support a better life following recovery. Nikki Plus Lyme offers the most advanced bioenergetic science in an attractive watch-size wearable. Lyme is the fastest growing vector-borne disease in the world, with over 500,000 cases diagnosed each year in North America alone. Nikki brings non-invasive, drug-free, and doctor-endorsed frequency technology to the symptoms of this debilitating chronic disease that defies traditional approaches to recovery. Nikki puts a personal wellness center in your hands and on your wrist. Be better. Do better. We are Nikki.com.
Awesome. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you again for joining us on the second half of Bioenergetics Beats. Don't forget, stay to the very end. We've got multiple giveaways to give away. So one lucky person's going to get all kinds of fun goodies. But let's talk about some more hopeful stuff when it comes to mold, and like what were some of the action things that you did. And obviously, we talked a little bit about your health, but like we didn't actually get into the nitty gritty of like, where were you at the kind of darkest point of this so that we can kind of see how far you came.
Yeah, sure. See, this is how it goes. It always turns dark again.
Absolutely.
These combos. But yeah, I mean, I would say the two things I can really give you that are quite hopeful is, I do know quite a bit about home maintenance now that I like to be an advocate on. And really, my own recovery and some of the recoveries I've seen are pretty remarkable. So at my lowest, so to speak, well, first of all, I got strep throat. I hadn't taken antibiotics in years, but I had to take antibiotics. Also, I should mention, right before this time is when I started to work from home. I had this like goal to be an online business person. So I had just replaced myself in my own clinic so that I could work from home. So I'm in the home, right? 24/7, ding, 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 get strep throat because my immune system is so shot. We can talk about why that happens. it just didn't come back from that. I was so exhausted. And I did like a full 3-week detox with, I think, Apex Energetics or Standard Process, didn't do anything, was getting IV therapy, didn't do anything. I was just really, emotionally low too. I was like, what more do I have to do? Like I'm like the healthiest person I know, but I'm like the sickest person I know. So I was going to the naturopathic clinic school in Portland and getting the IVs and stuff. And I said, there's got to be something else. Like, can you test me? So they did test me like for some autoimmunity and like some allergies. And they were the ones who talked to me about mold. So yeah, I had the strep throat, the fatigue. Frankly, when we started to rip up our house is when things got real bad because we didn't do it right and we were still there. So then my short-term memory was gone. And I was still working, but I'd have to think every thought like 5 times to remember what I was even thinking. And my eye started twitching. I was just so tired that like I started having like suicidal fantasies, I guess you could say, just because I know like when your cells are that tired, there's going to be like these thoughts that come up or could come up that you just don't want to have to go through like another day of feeling this tired. So it wasn't like I was unhappy. I just was so physically tired that my body didn't want to keep doing it. And that's kind of scary. So those are some of the things going on later. And I would say my earlier symptoms, which, you wouldn't maybe think were mold, like spotting in my periods. I really later learned my hormones were so low and depleted. Increasing food sensitivities, which nowadays people think, oh, that's common. It's not right to have a bunch of food sensitivities, especially when you're cooking all your own food and all this stuff. So, my gut was getting worse. I was always in pain. I remember how much pain I was in my pregnancy. My back always hurt. Holding my son always hurt. I was just always inflamed. But I was sort of managing it with like good diet and lifestyle. But I definitely wasn't thriving. And my immune system was just so shot. I would get a cold like every 2 weeks in the winter, like clockwork. So yeah, I was always had the chills. I remember too, I did test as having like Epstein-Barr, a lot of these viruses will flare up. I remember I was having the chills like so often, like sometimes having to take a bath 3 times a day just because I was so cold. So yeah, lots of symptoms, and for different people, they're going to manifest in different ways. Sometimes for kids, it'll be, more respiratory or bedwetting or nightmares or behavioral issues, definitely food sensitivities for kids too. So it just depends like on your own genetics, your own health history, what's going to come up.
Absolutely. The bedwetting was a shocking one to me. I think we had remediated our home to the dumb ass people enclosed a hot tub with drywall and put carpet down. So needless to say, it was mold central, and we demoed that ourselves as we were living
as renters.
And we didn't no, we owned the home.
Oh, okay.
It was a foreclosure right after that crash in 2014. Gotcha. And it had been left abandoned in the bank and had been foreclosed on. And so we thought we were getting such a deal. And
we're on the home network.
Right. And we're going to do the work ourselves. And needless to say, that was like our biggest nightmare for the next like 4 or 5 years is my son had suicide attempts. I had suicide attempts, the bedwetting, the depression, the anxiety, the full on like meltdowns. Like it was a hell house for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up some of those like emotional. I mean, I think the home can become like an emotional roller coaster. I just had a client with 3 kids and, the kids, I think they get flare-ups and they just, they just start slamming doors and wailing. And, when the day before they were fine. So, adults may show a little differently, but when I think back to like some of my moods and my state, then, that I thought, well, that's just me. Well, it's like a little bit me. It's also me with like a moldy brain.
Right. A brain on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, if people are listening and this is new to them, if you're, you're here learning about health, you're trying to have good habits, and you're just kind of like Heather and I are describing, like, this seems too much, like these symptoms, like, where are these coming from? This is why I think, mold is such a trigger and like a boulder, like you said.
Well, and it's crazy too, because it comes from it can either come, huge part of it is from food, and the other huge part of it is water damaged buildings. And I think the last time I read the stats, what was it, like 50% still of buildings are considered water damaged?
Well, here's what I'm saying about that. If you think about a building in the course of its lifetime, every single building is going to have water damage. How could it not?
Right.
It's just a matter of how was it handled and treated and this and that. Like, humidity, clogged gutters, foundation is off. I mean, I had someone on my Mold Summit, longtime mold expert. He said every crawl space is moldy, every one of them. So it's like people, even the 50%. So for example, my house, I'm in Arizona. I've had more than two water damage incidents in this home in the last 3 years. But because it dries so quickly here, I don't think any kind of overwhelming mold issue. And I'm, a little more conscious than the average bear about water damage. So I feel pretty good here. It's really why I moved here. Not to say every home in Arizona doesn't have this, a problem, but it just depends. But if you think about, a tree falling on the house, somebody overrunning the bathtub, like the dishwasher leaks when you're not home, like every single building is going to have a history, just like our human bodies all have a history of damage, right?
Right. So what are some of the more common themes that you see in homes that are a cause for hidden mold?
I mean, there are really so many.
I think you say that's so upbeat. There's really so many.
At least I bring that to this conversation. I would say, do we just start with humidity, right? So some people don't realize, like, if there's been a water damage or some kind of wetness, say even just the way you hang your towels up or the way you treat your bathroom, you haven't been very conscious. If there's been some water damage kind of opportunity for, say, drywall to get wet, and then you just have a humid home that you're not managing. So humidity should be 50% or less. So in Arizona here, that's quite easy. But when I lived in Oregon or you live in Texas, like a lot of places, and sometimes it's just seasonal, but you need to know. And how many people even measure their home humidity? So that's a simple one. Just keep mold from growing by keeping your house drier.
That's a beautiful one. I've also been told that another easy one would be your refrigerator, the water feature on your refrigerator, I was told, is a huge source of hidden, quite often it leaks.
They do. When I had to buy a fridge for this house, and I was like, I do not want the door for, the thing, mostly because they always break on me too. And it was hard to get a fridge that didn't have, so it has now like a little interior water pitcher, but at least it doesn't have that whole mechanism. And yeah, when you think about machinery, like, do we really clean it? Like, when's the last time someone's like pulled out their refrigerator? I know it's disgusting back there. Which brings up another point, is just keeping a really clean house, a decluttered house. Not to say that this is foolproof, but in general, you will improve your air quality by keeping a clean house. So just like the mycotoxins they said are very small, they generally are hitching a ride on other things like dust and mycotoxin fragments and stuff. So when you dust, you're wet dusting. And as much as we don't really like it, try to keep that on your schedule. Try to do that, a couple times a month. HEPA vacuum, wet mopping, not using Febreze or even any candle really is producing smoke. Running the vent if you cook with a gas stove, opening doors and windows when you can, not buying things that off gas. So some of these things don't as much have to do with mold, but they do interact with each other. So if you're in an environment where, say, you just bought everything at IKEA, well, if you think about particle board, it's all glued together with synthetic stuff. like we just had, back to college, right? It's like people are buying all this stuff for their kids or whatever. It's like we generally don't stop to think about toxins and these things and if it's off gassing. So your home environment, if it's like cluttered, humid, synthetic things in the house, not airing out the house, all these things are going to affect air quality. And then let's talk about the home itself. So I don't know about you, Heather, but when I first, became like a homeowner, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about taking care of a home. I didn't know when, people don't want to do stuff like get the roof checked, clean the gutter. I mean, people maybe clean the gutters. Is the foundation graded away from the house? Just there's a lot of things. Plumbing fixtures get like hard over time and they need to be replaced, like where your toilet goes into the wall. Those are things that I just didn't know. But if those fixtures are, you've never changed them and now maybe your toilet's overflowing and you turn the fixture and it like breaks, you got an even bigger problem. So now as a homeowner, I do maintain those kind of things a lot better. And I think that can save you a lot of problems because even if you're cleaning and you're dusting, if your attic's leaking, well, you're going to probably end up with mold.
I got this very cute visual of you with like a hard hat on and like a work belt on, and you're like walking around the house and you're doing all your stuff. It is. We have to become our own health advocates. We have to become our own homeowner advocates. We have to be our own, you can't just give everything up to someone else because then that takes away your power, right? And of things that could be avoided.
That's a good point too. Yeah. And I was sort of having that attitude, and I became single a few years ago. So now I'm really like a homeowner on my own. And at first I was mad about it. I was like, somebody else should be doing all this stuff. But now over time, I do feel empowered that at least I can do some things. I changed my air filter. I do certain little things around the house myself. I do not change the plumbing fixtures. I will call someone for that. But it does feel good and empowering. It's not someone else's job. It's our job.
I actually had my mechanic chew me out one time and he was like, this is basic automobile 101. Like, you should know this. And I was like, oh, I'm like, I thought that's what I paid you for. And he's like, what happens when I'm gone, Heather? He's like, you take advantage because you didn't know the blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. So I learned a little bit more about cars. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, I changed my own car battery too. I'll say that was a little sketchy.
Girl power. Yeah, that was actually a big thought that ran through my head because my husband now is really handy. And when we were going through a trial separation, and I'm looking around at the house and I'm like, oh God, I've got to do stuff myself. It's daunting. It can be daunting.
It is daunting, but you can learn. I'm very thankful for YouTube. There's a lot you can learn on YouTube.
That's awesome. So what were some of the more productive things, just give us like 2 or 3, because we're getting short on time, things to do for then the body. We talked a lot about the home, and then, what about the body?
Yeah. I mean, the body I would say testing wise is a lot easier than the home. Now we have a urine test. It's pretty accurate to see if there's mold in your body. You can retest, those numbers could go up and down. But that's nice. That's actually more simple than the home. The body recovery timeline can be a little long, to be honest, especially if you've been in the environment a long time. You think about like me, 8 years in this moldy home and how I slowly was breaking more and more down. Even you get out, and that's going to give you some relief. It's going to take time to keep detoxing and to rebuild those body systems. But let's start with the detox. As long as you're doing the foundational things, you're sleeping, you're pooping, you go work with a practitioner if you need to get, some basic things going. If those are going, you can add detox techniques, some detox supplements. I was a big fan of detox techniques. They helped me, I'd say, the most. So sauna, dry brushing, Epsom salt baths, coffee enema. I'm saying it at the same time. I love it. Coffee enema. if you're sick enough, you will try it. It helped me a lot. You can get lymphatic massage, you can jump on a rebounder. Getting exercise is actually really important, even when you're fatigued and really sick. So getting as much as you are able to get, which, hopefully goes up over time. So anyway, if your body, you're taking B vitamins, you're eating protein, you're sleeping, now you can, kind of push that lymph around and get some toxins out. So that's basically what a lot of these techniques are. And then you've got some techniques with the device, the Nikki. Especially some people really can't tolerate a lot of supplements. They're not in a great space digestively. They're very inflamed, but they can do some red light. They can, do whatever, like flotation tank. Like when people say I've tried everything, I'm like, I have like a whole list of things I bet you haven't tried. And so I do kind of focus a little heavier on techniques for people who don't tolerate supplements and just techniques in general. Every protocol I make for a mold client, I'm like, at least one technique a day you need to do. If you want to do 3, that's great. Your device is so easy because it's not time, right? Coffee enema is time to set it up, time to sit with it. If you're probably like Heather and I, you can multitask. Still get some stuff.
Quite often do. Somebody will be like, "Can I call you right now?" I'm like, "Please don't." And they're like, "Why?" I'm like, "Because I'm in the middle of a coffee enema." And they're like, "Oh." That's the one.
I'll take a call, Heather.
I won't. That's where I draw the line. I'll sit there and chat with you, but I will not pick up the phone.
Yeah, some things are more time consuming than others. So I think there's just a big menu of things that we can try. Some are basically free, some are very expensive. But I really like techniques. I think the body responds well to them. And the mycotoxins really can be lodged all over the place. So doing things like getting a good sweat, getting some deep lymphatic treatment really can help just dislodge and let your body move them out.
Absolutely. When we were at CellCore together this last year, it was amazing. I never heard of putting carboxy in like a lavage, to kind of help get out fungal balls and mold stuff that's been colonizing in the sinuses.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic that's just fascinating to me.
It's really interesting. I want to learn more about nasal treatment too. When I was sick, I pretty much was just doing saline, just salt water. I was doing that twice a day because I was getting post-nasal drip. I think even more than the gut, the nose is gonna colonize. So I've been reading some studies lately, even in a healthy subject, they have a bunch of mold in their nose. So it's just a matter of how much, everybody's different. But if you think what we're all breathing in, man, if you sample what we're all breathing in all day, what's landing in your mucus, it's some gross stuff. So yeah, I think Dr. Jill Krusta talks a lot about different nasal treatments. There's antibiotic treatments you can do for the nose. You can use Biocidin too in your nasal wash. Silver, I do sometimes do silver now. So yeah, there's a lot of treatment options out there too. And again, some of them are quite affordable. It's not that expensive to rinse out your nose with carboxy or salt water, what have you. But it can be a process, right? Because if all these things are living comfortably in your nose, to start to remove them, change the environment in there is a process.
Absolutely. So sweet. So we are kind of getting it close to the end here. What's any kind of final things that you would like to leave people with? And also, how can they find you?
Yeah, when I'm on podcasts, I usually say, if you think this is something you could be affected by, just start to look into it. Just take that first step to, we have a handout that tells you some areas of the home to think about, because you can just start with literally inspecting and thinking about your home and your workplace, because you probably never thought about it that way before. Yeah, I do have a book for people who are a little deeper into this process. It basically takes you through the whole process. My website is my name, BridgetDanner.com. And we have a bunch of free ebooks on there you can download. It's a big topic, and to say some of the scary things you might be experiencing, some of the financial hardship, I get it. I was the same way. Like, my ex-husband was like, let's test, let's get an inspector. And I was like, no, I do not want to know what he finds. I get it. I was the same way. But at the same time, you have to be an advocate for your own body and face these difficult things. Because I guarantee you will not get better by just burying your head in the sand. You will literally get worse and worse. Like, I was getting worse and worse. So, you can end up having miscarriages. It contributes to cancer and heart disease and Alzheimer's, like serious stuff. So it's not just some like kooky wackadoodle topic. It can make you very, very sick. So
kooky and wackadoodle, that is the professional term, folks.
That's why I have like so many citations in my book. I'm like, I'm not making this stuff up. There's a surprisingly large amount of studies been done on mold, because also livestock get sick from mold. So there's been it's a big industry. So before they really talked about it for humans, they were looking at it a lot for animals. So yeah, I just encourage people, as daunting as this may sound, just be curious, just be, light about it, because if it is a cause for you, there'll be a day that you're like, I'm really glad that I looked into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amen. And make sure that you also visit wearenikki.com/podcast and enter in BioBeats for 10% off if you want to figure out how she talked about how she deals with mold. We have a detox and mold setting on the Nikki Plus line, which has been absolutely amazing in my health journey. But because we really love our customers, and we want to show our appreciation, Miss Bridget here has decided to give away a copy of her books to one lucky winner. And we're also giving away a Nikki on every episode. So go to the show notes to learn more about how to enter in that drawing, and good luck to you. And make sure that you share, like, and subscribe, because this information, right, doesn't do anybody any good if it doesn't get anywhere. So if you learned one little nugget today, you've been inspired on some level, make sure that you share this information around, because this is really why we do it. This is to help people, and we can't help people without you helping us. So make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for coming on, Bridget. It was so good seeing you again. And everybody else, make sure to have a healthy day.
Put a better life in your hands and on your wrist. Nikki Plus Lyme Frequency Set is designed to help you get back to the life you enjoyed before Lyme. After 45 days, you also gain access to the Nikki Platinum Suite of 8 frequency sets and 5 frequency set bundles. Every Nikki comes loaded with a full inventory of frequency set, including pain, energy, travel, immune, stress and anxiety, viruses and bacteria, allergies, insomnia, daytime bundles, nighttime bundles. Nikki puts a personal wellness center in your hands and on your wrist. Be better. Do better. WeAreNikki.com.